All right, everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're tackling something pretty much everyone's dealt with, stress.
Oh,
But
yeah.
we're not going for those surface level tips,
Yeah.
like take a bubble bath and call it a day.
Right.
Our source material for this deep dive is actually a whole podcast script, and it's all about stress management.
Interesting.
But what really got me interested was how the script gets into the actual science of stress, like what's going on in our bodies and brains
Yeah.
when we're dealing with chronic stress.
Yeah, that is fascinating, isn't it? We tend to just throw the word stress around like it's always a bad thing. But this script really makes it clear that stress itself is a natural response. Our bodies are actually designed to handle challenges, and that initial stress response can be helpful. It's what keeps us focused, motivated,
Yeah.
it gets us moving. It's when that stress becomes chronic that things start to get a little messy.
The chronic stress part is what really got me thinking too. I mean, we all know that stress is bad for you, but seeing the actual list of health problems in the source material really puts it into perspective. Heart disease, high blood pressure, a weakened immune system.
Wow.
It can even mess with your digestion. It's not just in your head. It can affect your whole body.
Yeah, and that's exactly why it's so important to be able to recognize the signs that you might be dealing with too much stress, because it's not always super obvious. The source material talks about fatigue, trouble sleeping, irritability, even headaches and muscle tension.
Okay, but how do you know if it's just a bad day or if it's something more serious? And we've all felt wiped out.
Or a little irritable sometimes.
That's a great question. And it's not always easy to tell. But if you're experiencing those symptoms pretty regularly and they're starting to affect your daily life, it might be a sign that your body is kind of stuck in that fight or flight mode, like your internal alarm system is just constantly going off. And that takes a real toll over time. So how do we turn off that alarm? The script mentions a few different strategies for managing stress, but I'm curious, what stood out to you as maybe being the most effective?
Well, one thing that really caught my attention was the emphasis on exercise. The source specifically says that even a short walk, like just 20 minutes, can really impact your mood. And the reason behind that is fascinating. Exercise releases endorphins, which have mood-boosting effects. It's basically a natural antidepressant.
Wow.
So it's not just about blowing off steam, it's about actually changing your brain chemistry.
That's awesome. And I can definitely vouch for that myself. Even just a quick walk outside, it can totally shift my mindset.
Absolutely. The source also talks about mindfulness techniques, things like meditation or deep breathing. These practices can help calm the nervous system and sort of train your mind to focus on the present moment. They're not just some weird esoteric thing. They have real measurable effects on reducing stress hormones.
You know, when I first tried meditation, I thought it was all a little too woo for me. But honestly, even just taking 5 minutes to focus on my breath, it can completely change my energy.
Exactly. And it's something that anyone can do, anytime, anywhere. And then there's diet. We can't forget about that. What we eat has a huge impact on both our mental and physical well-being. The source material specifically mentions leafy greens, nuts, and fish as being really beneficial for stabilizing your mood.
That makes sense. Those are all brain foods. So we've got exercise, mindfulness, and diet. What else does the script recommend?
Two other crucial things are setting boundaries and seeking support. Chronic stress often comes from feeling overwhelmed and taking on too much. So learning to say no and prioritizing your own needs is super important. And just as important is reaching out to others. Talking to someone you trust, whether it's a friend, a family member, or a therapist, can really help you process your emotions and gain some perspective.
Yeah, it's so true. Bottling things up just makes everything worse. It's like having that pressure cooker going nonstop. So it sounds like the main takeaway here is that stress is a normal part of life, but chronic stress doesn't have to rule our lives.
Absolutely. We have way more power than we realize to manage it and build that resilience.
I love that. And if there's one thing I hope our listeners take away from this deep dive today, it's that you don't have to completely change your life overnight. Just pick one small change, whether it's a walk, a few minutes of meditation, or having a salad, and give it a try. You might be surprised how powerful those small steps can be.
I think that's great advice. And as you start incorporating those little practices into your life, I want you to think about something. The source defines stress as the body's response to any demand. So what are those demands? The ones you're placing on yourself? Which ones are really serving you? And which ones might be adding unnecessary stress to your life? By becoming more aware of those demands, we can start making more conscious choices about what we allow into our lives and how we respond to those challenges that inevitably come our way.